Have you ever felt that there's a small, vulnerable part of you still waiting to be heard? That inner child who once held your dreams, who perhaps silenced their truths out of fear of rejection. Today, I want to speak directly to that part, to that essential piece of your being that, according to Carl Jung, must be acknowledged so that you can live a full and authentic life. What would happen if today, right now, you allowed yourself to listen? Imagine for a moment that you could write a letter to that child you once were, who still lives inside you. What would you say to them? Perhaps you would begin like this. Dear inner child, I've spent too much time ignoring you. I silenced your desires, minimized your wounds, and pretended you didn't exist while trying to please everyone else but you. Today, I want to tell you that I see you, I hear you, and from now on, your needs will be just as important as anyone else's in my life. Carl Jung, one of the most profound and revolutionary psychologists in history, understood perfectly that reconciling with our inner child may be the most important work we can do in our adult lives. Jung discovered that within each of us lives an inner child, what he called the archetype of the divine child, representing our purest essence, our innate creativity, and our ability to be enchanted by life. But in the process of becoming adults, many of us learn to ignore that voice. We learned that in order to be accepted, to survive in this world, we had to silence parts of ourselves. And so, little by little, we began building a mask. What Jung called the persona, the face we show to the world while hiding our true essence. The problem is that when we ignore our inner child, when we abandon them to meet external expectations, we create a fracture in our psyche, and that fracture, sooner or later, manifests as anxiety, as depression, as that persistent feeling that something is missing in our lives, even when, on the surface, we seem to have everything. Think for a moment, how many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you ignored your own needs to meet the needs of others? How many decisions have you made based on what you should do instead of what you truly want? Jung taught us that every time we betray our essence to please others, we are feeding what he called the shadow, those rejected parts of ourselves that, though denied, continue to influence our lives from the unconscious. And do you know what happens when the shadow grows? We feel fragmented, disconnected from ourselves. We experience that unexplainable emptiness that no external achievement, no relationship, no material possession can ever fill. The good news is, it's never too late to reconnect with your inner child. It's never too late to heal that primordial relationship. And the first step is always to recognize their existence and validate their needs. Jung said that the unconscious always seeks balance. It always tries to guide us toward wholeness. Those feelings of restlessness, those recurring dreams, that intuition you sometimes ignore, they're all messages from your unconscious, trying to show you the path back to your integrity. Your inner child doesn't want perfection. They don't expect you to suddenly solve all your problems. The only thing they truly desire is to be seen, to be heard, to be recognized as a valuable and essential part of who you are. Imagine if you could have a conversation. Maybe they would ask you, why did you stop playing? Why don't you laugh like you used to, freely and spontaneously? Why did you abandon those dreams that once made your eyes shine? And maybe you would answer, because I grew up, because I have responsibilities, because real life doesn't work that way. But Jung reminds us, integrating our inner child doesn't mean going back to childhood or escaping our adult responsibilities. On the contrary, it means bringing that spontaneity, that authenticity, and that capacity for wonder into our adult lives. It means allowing ourselves to be whole. When we begin to listen to and honor our inner child, something extraordinary happens. We begin to reclaim parts of ourselves we had forgotten. We remember what used to make us feel alive before the world told us what we should want. We rediscover abandoned talents, postponed dreams, and a natural capacity for joy we thought we had lost. Do you remember that activity that used to make you lose track of time when you were little? That passion you felt so intensely you couldn't stop talking about it? Maybe it was drawing, writing stories, dancing without a care in the world. Maybe it was exploring nature or simply daydreaming. That activity wasn't trivial. It was a pure expression of your essence, what Jung would have called yourself. When we reconnect with those forgotten passions, we're not being childish or escaping real life. We are, in fact, moving closer to our wholeness, to that integration that Jung considered the fundamental purpose of human life. But reconciling with our inner child also means facing something painful. We have to acknowledge the wounds they carry, those moments when they felt abandoned, ignored or rejected. Those times when they had to hide their feelings in order to be accepted or loved. Jung taught us that healing does not mean denying pain, but integrating it. It means embracing even the most vulnerable and wounded parts of ourselves with compassion and understanding. Maybe your inner child still cries for the time they needed comfort and didn't receive it. Maybe they still feel the pain of being criticized when they were hoping to be celebrated. Or maybe they carry the feeling of not being enough, of having to earn the love they deserved unconditionally. Healing those wounds doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, an ongoing dialogue with yourself. But every time you allow yourself to acknowledge that pain, every time you say to that child, "I see you, I hear you, and your pain is valid," you are taking a step toward the integration Jung described as individuation. The process of becoming the whole and unique person you are meant to be. And do you know what's most powerful about this process? As you heal your relationship with your inner child, you also transform your relationships with others. Jung deeply understood that the way we relate to ourselves is reflected in how we relate to the world. If we ignore or reject our inner child, it's likely that we also ignore or reject others when they show vulnerability. If we are harsh and unforgiving with ourselves, we will be with others too. But if we learn to embrace our most vulnerable parts with compassion, that same compassion will naturally extend to others. Think for a moment about your current relationships. Do you notice any patterns? Do you often find yourself taking care of everyone else while neglecting your own needs? Or maybe you keep people at a distance out of fear of being hurt, just like your inner child was once hurt. Jung taught us that our most important relationships act as mirrors, reflecting aspects of ourselves that we need to recognize and heal. He called this projection, the phenomenon by which we tend to see in others, the unacknowledged parts of ourselves, both the ones we admire and the ones we reject. If you want to transform your relationships, start by transforming your relationship with yourself. Start by reconciling with that inner child who is still waiting for your love and recognition. Maybe you're asking yourself, where do I begin? How do I establish a dialogue with my inner child after so much time ignoring them? Jung offered us several powerful tools for this inner journey. One of them is what he called active imagination, a conscious dialogue with the contents of our unconscious. Try this exercise. Close your eyes and visualize your inner child. What do they look like? How old are they? Observe their face, their expression. What emotions do you see reflected there? Now imagine that you can speak to them. Ask what they need. Ask what they've been trying to tell you. And then, most importantly, listen. Without judging, without minimizing, just listen. With your whole heart, practiced regularly, this simple exercise can deeply transform your relationship with yourself. Because every time you allow yourself to hear your inner child, you're healing that old disconnection and returning to your wholeness. Another powerful tool Jung left us is the practice of paying attention to our dreams. Jung considered dreams to be direct messages from the unconscious, windows into those parts of ourselves that our conscious mind has forgotten or denied. Have you noticed that sometimes you dream of children? According to Jung, these children may represent aspects of your inner child asking for attention. Perhaps a child abandoned in your dream reflects how you have been abandoning yourself. Or perhaps a playful and free child reminds you of the spontaneity you've lost in adult life. Start keeping a dream journal. Write your dreams down as soon as you wake up, without filtering or judging. Over time, you may begin to notice patterns, recurring symbols, offering valuable clues about your inner process. But reconciling with your inner child is not just an introspective task. It also requires concrete actions in your daily life. It means beginning to honor your needs, to set healthy boundaries, and to allow yourself to experience joy and play without guilt. When was the last time you did something simply because it made you happy, without thinking whether it was productive or useful? Jung deeply valued what he called the play function, that human capacity for play and creativity that is so deeply connected to our inner child. Allow yourself to play again. Allow yourself to create without worrying about the outcome. Take time for those activities that nourish your soul, even if the practical world sees them as trivial or unproductive. And perhaps most importantly, begin to speak to yourself with the same kindness and compassion you would offer to a child you love, because that is exactly what your inner child is. A precious and vulnerable part of you that deserves all your love and protection. Jung understood that the modern world constantly pushes us outward toward productivity, material success, and external validation. But he insisted that the true treasure, the real source of meaning and fulfillment, lies in the inner journey. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." This awakening, this reconciliation with your inner child is not a final destination, but an ongoing path. There will be days when the connection flows naturally, and others when old patterns try to return. In those difficult moments, remember that this is not about perfection, but about presence, about being willing to begin again and again, in this healing dialogue with yourself. As you move forward on this path, you may notice profound changes in your life. You might begin to feel greater clarity about your true desires and needs. You might start to attract relationships that honor your essence instead of demanding that you change. Or perhaps you will simply feel a new lightness, as if you've stopped carrying a weight you didn't even know you bore. Jung called these changes synchronicities, those seemingly random but deeply meaningful events that occur when we are aligned with our true selves. Reconciling with your inner child doesn't only benefit you, it benefits everyone around you. Because when you allow yourself to be authentic, when you embrace both your strength and your vulnerability, you give others permission to do the same. You become a mirror in which others can recognize and honor their own truth. Imagine a world where we all reconciled with our inner child, a world where vulnerability was seen as strength, where authenticity was valued above appearances, where play and creativity were just as important as productivity. Jung believed that this kind of individual transformation is the only true path to collective transformation. That change begins within each one of us, in this sacred dialogue with our deepest essence. So today, I invite you to write that love letter to your inner child, to acknowledge their wounds and celebrate their gifts, to promise them that from now on, their needs matter, their voice will be heard, and their presence will be honored in every decision you make. You could begin like this. Dear inner child, forgive me for all the times I ignored you, for asking you to stay silent, for telling you your dreams were too big or your wounds too small. Today, I want to say that I see you, I hear you, and every part of you, your fears, your dreams, your deepest longings, is valuable and worthy of being honored. I promise that from now on, every time the world asks me to abandon you to please others, I will remember that my first commitment is to you. I will remember that honoring you is not selfishness, but the first act of true love from which all others are born. I promise to learn how to protect you, to nourish you, to celebrate you. I will remember how to play, how to dream, how to look at the world with your eyes full of wonder. And above all, I promise that you will never again have to face life alone, that I will be with you, holding you, guiding you, loving you unconditionally, as you have always deserved to be loved. This letter is not the end of the process, but the beginning. It's an invitation to a continuous dialogue, a constant rediscovery of who you truly are beneath all the layers, all the masks you adopted to survive in this world. As Jung said, The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you truly are, at your deepest core, includes that child you once were, with all her curiosity, her vulnerability, her innate intuition, and her capacity for joy. Reconciling with her may be the most revolutionary act you can perform in a world that constantly asks you to separate from your truth. It is saying no to fragmentation and yes to wholeness. It is choosing yourself, not from the ego, but from the soul. And when you choose yourself in this way, when you honor every part of you, even the most vulnerable and forgotten, you are doing exactly the work that Jung considered the fundamental purpose of human life, to become who you truly are. So today, right now, I invite you to take that first step, to pause for a moment amidst the noise and the rush, and ask yourself, what does my inner child need? What has she been trying to tell me? And how can I begin to listen to her, to honor her, to integrate her into my adult life? Because as Jung taught us, it is only when we reconcile with all parts of ourselves, when we embrace both our light and our shadow, our strength and our vulnerability, that we can experience that fullness, that deep peace we all long for. And you are not alone on this journey. Every person who watches this video is, in some way, on their own path back home, back to their essence. We are part of an invisible community of soul seekers who dare to look inward in a world obsessed with the external. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to share it. Pass it on to someone who might need to hear it right now. Because every time one person reconciles with their inner child, a space is created for others to do the same. Leave in the comments how your own dialogue with your inner child has been. What have you discovered? What challenges have you encountered? What transformations have you experienced? Your story may be exactly what someone else needs to hear to begin their own journey of reconciliation. And if this is new to you, if you've never before considered the importance of reconnecting with your inner child, just remember, it is never too late to start. Never too late to write that letter, to begin that dialogue, to recover those parts of you that have been patiently waiting to be rediscovered. As Jung said, know yourself. If you know yourself, then you will know the world. And knowing yourself begins with recognizing, loving, and honoring that child you still are in the deepest parts of your being. Thank you for being here, for listening, for allowing yourself to be touched by these words. The very fact that you've made it to the end of this video is a sign that your inner child is ready to be heard, ready to guide you back to your wholeness, your authenticity, to that full and meaningful life you deserve to live. If this message touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell to receive more content that supports you on your inner journey. Remember to share this video with someone who might need it, and let me know in the comments how this message resonates with you. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, the path to a full life begins with a simple but powerful decision. The decision to reconcile with your inner child, to listen to her, to love her, and to let her guide you back to your true essence. As Carl Jung taught us, it is only when we integrate all parts of our being that we can experience that wholeness, that deep peace, that authentic joy we all long for. Until next time, and remember, your inner child has waited a lifetime to be heard. Today might just be the day you finally welcome her back home.